My name is Ngunan Adamu. I'm a broadcaster, entrepreneur. Um, my country of origin is Nigeria, but I reside in Liverpool. I am very happy to be here with Just4Women Europe.
This is Just for Women Europe, connecting women across borders. Can you tell us about your journey from aspiring presenter to becoming a BBC trained journalist and broadcaster?
Yeah, so I did journalism at university here in Liverpool. I did a BA honours in journalism at John Moores University. And then went on, I joined the BBC back in 2005. But I started in TV first. And from TV, I then accidentally fell into radio. Um, so I presented radio, well, been presenting radio now for 13 years. I've been at the BBC for 20 years in total. And I set up my business in 2016. So I've had a fantastic career. So I'd been at the BBC for 10 years and then set up my business in 2016, two businesses, while still presenting my radio show as well. So I went part time with the BBC to set up my business. And from 2017, I started working internationally, training journalists across Africa and Asia. So my main countries were Nigeria, Senegal, Kenya, Bangladesh, and India. But with those countries, I was training journalists from all over Africa and all over India, including some of the islands. So Mauritius, outside the Philippines, Bangladesh. Well, yeah. So I've trained quite a few thousands of journalists across Africa and Asia. So it was a nice transition because when I went part-time, I actually went back to university to do a PGCE, which is a postgraduate qualification in education, but training to be able to train adults in media.
What initially attracted you to journalism and broadcasting?
So I've always been fascinated by people and people's stories. But also I found that with media, our voices weren't represented, and I wanted to be able to share those stories, but also share the positive stories of people of African Caribbean heritage. And that's literally where it came from. I loved reading as well. And I love listening to people's stories. I find people very fascinating. um, and that's a big thing for me is everybody has a story. There's not one person on this earth that doesn't have a story. And I always wanted to be able to help them share that story with the world. Um, and yes, so I get to do a job that I absolutely love. And every day, I would say every day is a school day because I'm learning so much about people and the work that they're doing and the work that they're doing to try and change, communities and empower communities as well.
What challenges did you face as a woman, particularly as a Black woman working in the media industry?
Oh, many challenges. I faced many challenges. People are always surprised when they hear that I've been at the BBC for 20 years. But I've worked all over as well. So challenges, I would say, not getting the right opportunities. Even though I knew I was one of the best people for the job. Um, so that would be the main thing is the not getting the right opportunities, not being listened to, um, put in situations where actually was safeguarding issues. So I remember I had to go to a part of the UK that was so racist, where people would had stickers of the British National Front um party, which is it's a far right organization, on their windows, on their lampposts, so things like that. But the big one I would say has definitely been the lack of opportunities, which is why I started my business in the first place. Was if I wasn't getting those opportunities, I decided to create my own opportunities, and that's advice that I think I would give to any woman, especially Black woman, who feels that they've been overlooked for any opportunity within the workplace. But that would be my top one, would be the lack of opportunities.
What inspired you to create iWoman Media and iWoman Academy?
So it was a time when I had my son in 2011, and I went back to work after after my maternity leave, and the job I was previously doing had changed, had gone. So I had to reapply for a new job. I got the job, but it was lower than the position that I had before I went on maternity leave. So I felt like I'd gone backwards slightly. And I felt like I was working, and I wasn't being developed, and I didn't feel like I was being stretched. And I just I wanted to find something that would create impact, but at the same time develop me as a woman, and someone in the media industry. And the funny thing was, the time when I thought about starting my own business, the BBC was just gearing up for its next round of job cuts, and that would have been my third round of job cuts, that I had survived at the BBC. I just sat there and I thought, what am I doing? If I if I was to lose my job now, what would I do? And I have a child, and I'm a single parent. And the idea came then to create iWoman Academy, where it would be using digital skills and media to help women, actually help women with their digital skills and develop themselves in their digital, yeah, just develop themselves. So it was a need. I just felt like it was a need for other women, not just myself. Even though for me it came from a need of wanting to support and protect other women. um, it's something that just grew and grew, and it's still going now. And it's the best decision that I made, was to start iWoman Academy. So for those that might not know, in the UK we have different legal structures. So iWoman Academy is a CIC, which is a community interest company, which is where I do a lot of my charity work. And I get funding to work with women from different backgrounds, women who are refugees, asylum seekers, women on 0-hour contracts, or low wages. And then I have iWoman Media Limited, which is where I get commissioned to do projects, but also I do a lot of hosting events. So that comes under iWoman Media, which is a limited company. Um, it's a private company limited by shares, and the CIC is a community interest company limited by guarantee. So I knew I wanted to have two separate companies because I knew I was going in different directions. And it just made things easier. So nothing was messy. It was just easy to do the work that I wanted to do with women, but also make money as an entrepreneur, and and hosting and commissioning to work with corporates. But at the bottom of that, a lot of the work that I do is media related, but also still focused on women and communities.
What have you learned about entrepreneurship over the years?
I have learned a lot having two companies. So there's times when I sit and think, why did why did I start two companies at the same time? But it's the best decision that I made. And the reason why I laugh is because if you have two companies, you have two sets of accounts. You have two sets of everything. But also, I think the beauty of having two companies, the way I've set them up is, when my limited company is making money, that money then goes into the CIC. So I'm not always looking for funding, but when funding comes in, it's a bonus, and I can do more of the work that I'm currently doing anyway. So yeah, so that's why I set them up, because I knew I needed to do two different things. It didn't make sense to have one company when I was doing a lot of commercial work. So the work that I was doing internationally, that comes under my commercial work, and obviously when I'm working with communities, that comes under my CIC. So yeah, I just wanted to separate the identities, because they were doing two completely separate things. But it's a lot of hard work, but I've been doing it now for 10 years, and I've got great accountants. So it's easy now. It's still expensive because you have to pay for two sets of accounts. But it's just making sure that I know exactly what each company does. And I still have more ideas as well. So ideas never stop. Maybe that's part of being a Nigerian scouser. I don't know, but I love to have ideas. I love to change things. So yeah, I love to throw myself into the deep end, which is what I've done. But yeah, I've got no regrets starting two companies at the same time. But they do what they're supposed to do.
How did you come up with the idea to use one company to fund another?
So I've been really lucky. So in Liverpool, we have a couple of programs for startup businesses. So one that I was the first one I ever went on was called the School for Social Entrepreneurs. It's a UK wide program, but there's so many out there now. When I first started my business, there wasn't that many programs, but there's so many out there, and it's a lot of businesses do that. So what I'm doing is not out of the ordinary. A lot of business do that. Some businesses will decide to start a charity on as part of their or a foundation as part of their business. Um so whatever profits they make, they then use that to do the good work that they want to do. So with me, it was similar. It was profits, but also if there was anything I really wanted to do that a lot of funders didn't understand, I could just use the money from my company to be able to make that happen. So, but that idea literally came from um business models that are already out there. I think it's something that we need to do more of within African businesses. I don't think we do it enough. Um because there's so much to be done in our communities that it makes sense to either start a foundation, have a community interest company, or a CIO, which is I think that's a community interest organization, which can't remember the terminology. There's so many out there now. But you always want to give back to the community. So for me, it worked out well that I had the limited company and I was able to do that.
Through iWoman, you have trained thousands of women. What transformation have impressed you the most?
Oh, the ones that haven't, oh, they've all impressed me. They've all impressed me, and I'm still in contact with quite a few of them. Um, One works at the BBC. What a couple actually have started their own businesses. One moved to China. um, so yeah, so the ones I think, goodness, they've all really impressed me. I think what impresses me the most is that when I set up iWoman Academy, I set it up to support women's confidence and communication, and to be able to take what they've learned and do something with it. It was never created to get for anyone to go into media. That wasn't the foundation for it. It was using media as a well-being tool to support women's journeys. So seeing women get that confidence to be able to start their own business um has been heartwarming for me. Even volunteering. So I've had a couple of women who were refugees and asylum seekers and had lost their confidence because of the journey from their countries to coming to the UK, and the racism that they faced in the UK, as well as the hardship of migrating from your home country to another country. Um, and seeing them even going into volunteering roles within the Liverpool City region has been fantastic. Even one of the ladies I spoke to, she's now in Scotland and is a trained nurse, you know. So there's so many stories that I can tell. Another one went back to university to study media and production. So yeah, so I'm still in touch with a few of the women, but a lot of them have got jobs now, or went back to school. But the majority, I would say, started their own business. So it makes me think actually I need to start a media to entrepreneurship course. But yeah, so those are the type of stories that have really impressed me. It's very rare that I've met any of the women or that haven't done anything with themselves since leaving the program. Um, but yeah, so they've all really impressed me.
Many organizations talk about diversity. What does meaningful inclusion actually look like?
Meaningful inclusion to me means retaining your team. You know, a lot of organizations will always say, oh, we are an equal opportunity, employer. However, you can employ diverse communities, but if you can't retain them, then that means there's a problem within your organization, the environment of your organization. So meaningful inclusion means the environment is safe, it's psychologically safe. It means people don't want to leave. Um, it means they feel heard, listened to, and they're developed. There's you can't hire people and they're still on the same band for 10, 15 years, and the opportunities for them to develop and be promoted is not there. So yeah, so I think I'm a big believer in equality, equity, but if you're not developing your staff from those communities, if your board members are 90% white, then you have a problem. It has to be everything. It has to be embedded in the thread, the infrastructure of your business when you talk about meaningful inclusion. So a lot of companies still have a lot of work to do. Um and I'm not just saying it's about ethnicity. It's about social class as well. It's about religion. It's all of that. We can have, you can have black women as part of the company, but if they come from a certain class that doesn't leave room for growth for other women, black women that come through the company, then you have a problem. I don't, you know, I don't like this. I don't like the behavior of we have one in and now I'm going to close the gate on everybody else. When you have one in, that one in should be able to open the gates for everybody else. So that's what meaning inclusion means to me.
What are some common mistakes companies make when trying to support women leaders?
And I talk about this from a black woman's perspective, is they think we're all the same. So they think we're a monolith. Um, Black women, especially African women, we're all very different. We all come from different walks of life, different backgrounds. I think that's a common mistake. And I think it's about listening to what your team wants. So for example, the way I work, I love to work late. So my day doesn't start till say 10, 11 o'clock, and it might not finish till midnight. But also I've got a child, I'm a single parent. So my working pattern is completely different. But I still get the work done. I'm at that age where I call it the sandwich year. I'm 46 this year. I've got a child who's 15 and I have a mother who's going to be 70. So a lot of us have got caring responsibilities for our children and our parents. So it's about listening to what women need to be, fruitful and active in the workplace. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that companies make, is not listening to what women need to be able to be proactive in the workplace and in the workspace.
Are there differences between the challenges women face in Africa and those in Western countries?
Oh, there's definitely challenges. Definitely challenges. I think in the UK, um, we do have some protection. I think, and I don't want to say Africa, because Africa, I mean, is it 54 countries in Africa? Um, the way things work in Kenya are completely different to the way things work in Nigeria, and and in Senegal and all these places. Um, in some countries, women in Africa have actually better rights and are being developed and are, real leaders in parts of Africa that we're quite behind in the UK. So I think we can both learn from Africa, and equally Africa can learn from the UK. But Africa is doing some fantastic things. I do think that we do definitely have more rights in terms of, having unions and laws that protect us. I know we face similar problems, but I think that's the only thing I would say that sets us apart is that there's the protection. But in terms of seeing how women work in Africa, they're working hard and they're working fantastically well. It's just that there's the lack of opportunity. There's the lack of investment, which obviously is the same in the UK. But I think there's I mean, we still need to do a lot more in both continents. You know, we all have our challenges. The main thing is we need the investment, whether it's from businesses, whether it's from philanthropists, organizations. At the bottom of all of this is women need investment to be able to do the work that they need to do. And equally in the workplace, they need to be developed um properly to be able to do to just to do their jobs, you know. But it'll be unfair for me to say that the UK is perfect in how they work with women. We're still behind, and I've seen good practice in parts of Africa. Seeing how women work and women leaders, and even so there's a lot that we could learn in the UK from how Africa does things.
What are the biggest confidence barriers women face today?
I don't think women lack confidence. I think we're doing everything right. We lack allies. We need more allies, especially male allies, to help amplify our voices. You know, I think sometimes when women are talking about the lack of opportunities, it can sometimes seem like just noise, you know. And when you have the right allies to put you in those spaces in front of the right people, that's how things move for a lot of women. And equally women carrying through women as well, unapologetically. Um so I think a lot of it is not about confidence, it's the lack of allies to put us in those spaces and the lack of sponsors. So a big thing for me growing is having the right mentors and the right sponsors to support my career and support my business. And I think that's where women are failing is not having the right mentors or the right sponsors to be able to carry them through. Um, so it's finding those people that, like I say, that I class or call as allies who see that women are doing fantastic work and saying, I want to support that work. And what's the best way of supporting, not just in terms of advice, but actually in terms of opening doors, in terms of equity and investment. So that's a big thing for me. So we need those men to help, to open those doors, and equally women who've already reached those spaces to keep the door open for other women as well.
Do you believe women have built strong enough alliances among themselves to drive meaningful change, or is collaboration with men still essential for achieving lasting progress?
From my experience, I would say the majority of support that I've had I'd say the past 3 years, in terms of investment has come from women. And I've had so many male mentors, but they like to give advice. I haven't had any mentor that has said, I like what you're doing. Apart from one, let me say, apart from one, I like what you're doing. Let me invest in it. But I've had more investment from women financially. And I've had none from men whatsoever, apart from advice. And women, I think now, especially black women, we're fed up of advice. You know, somebody said we are over advised and underfunded. And it's true. You know, everybody wants to give black women advice. Everybody, but we don't need advice investments. Um, and it's shown time and time again that black women start their own business with their own equity, um, and those businesses thrive. The only issues that we have is sometimes the barriers to that stops us getting past that wall, and that is maybe financial barriers, um, caregiving barriers, doors opening. But if you invest in a black woman properly, she'll do amazing things. Um, so yeah, I think we could support each other, but the higher you go, in that chain, it is men that are still up there, and they still need to. So we still need men as allies to help open those doors. Women alone can't do it. I think we're still. This is my opinion and my experience. We're still a little way off, because the people who hold the purse strings are men, and they're right up there. So we still need those male allies.
How do you manage the demand of leadership while maintaining personal well-being?
Oh, it's hard. I don't think I've got it right. I don't think I've got it right at all. I think when I was starting my business, what people would tell me was a leader is not that. They would say to be a leader, you have to be hard and cold and, higher fast, sack fast, or, higher fast, fire fast, all these things. And actually, what makes a good leader is someone who is still personable, someone who still has empathy, not to the point that it can cripple your business. Um, but you still have to be personable. A leader is someone that allows their team to be able to work well, is someone that can spot the potential in their team members and can develop them. That's, to me, that's a leader. Um, and I think it's very hard to navigate your well-being at the same time, especially when you're building. I think what I've done differently now the past few years is the simple things. So setting a out of office, you know, I used to think I had to answer every email as soon as they came in. But as I got busy, I wasn't able to do that. So I've set it out of office. I have a VA, so I have a virtual assistant that looks after my diary. I have facilitators. Um, so it's taken slowly, taking, offloading those responsibilities to a team, having holidays. And when I say holidays, I mean a proper holiday. Like, if you can, leave the country and don't take a laptop with you. Have time just to relax. Go to a spa if you don't want to go to a spa by yourself. It's okay to have solo travel, you know. So that's why I look after my well-being. There was times when people said, "Oh, you're always on holiday," and I said, "Because I need it. I need it." Without children, sometimes with my child and my mom and family, but I went away for a week by myself, and I went to Turkey, and I enjoyed it. Even if I didn't want to leave the hotel, I stayed in the hotel room, and just relaxed. Because we take these things for granted. It's a privilege just to be still. It's such a privilege, and sometimes we forget that. And I think as Black women, we always forget that it's okay to be still. It's okay not to look at your phone. It's okay to not look at, your emails. So yeah, so that's the way I look after my well-being. But I think I still have a long way to go to get it perfect. And I don't know if I'll ever if I'll ever get there, you know. But yeah, I'm still learning.
What is the vision for iWoman over the next 5 years?
My vision has always to be international, and for women to access iWoman Academy all over the world. I mean, mainly Africa, but all over the world. So that's my vision, and that's something I'm working towards. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's a big vision. So it's going to take me some time to work through it. Um, but also to be able to change policies if possible, but all those policies that affect women and women in Africa. Um, and to have a podcast, like a proper podcast. The plan was to have a radio station, um, but I would love to see that through now. So an online radio station, not just a podcast, but like an online radio station. Because we've got a podcast. But yeah, online radio station would be fantastic, as well as a franchise.
If you could speak to your younger self at the beginning of your career, what advice would you give her?
Never doubt yourself. Um, you're intelligent. You're always right. um, but a big one would be don't doubt yourself and trust in your gut instincts. Um, and yeah, and and you're gonna go far. Yeah, you're going to go far. And yeah, but the big one would be trusting in your abilities, trust in your knowledge, and just trust yourself and continue to back yourself.
Thank you for watching Just for Women Europe.